Trump ditched policy of splitting up families in immigration centers after pressure from May, Boris Johnson claims, as he insists President's visit to Britain will go ahead next month. Donald Trump ditched his policy of splitting families in immigration detention centers after pressure from Theresa May, Boris Johnson suggested today. The Foreign Secretary said the U.S. President's volte-face on the tough rules showed the growing influence of the UK. He also insisted that the immigration furor would not derail Mr. Trump's visit to Britain next month. The claim by Mr. Johnson comes amid a huge outcry at the treatment of families at the Mexican border. Mr. Trump last week called a halt to the policy of separating children from their parents in detention centers when they try to cross into the U.S. illegally. The approach had been taken as they cannot be imprisoned with their parents for more than a few weeks. However, he has robustly defended his hardline on immigration, insisting it was one of the reasons he was elected. At Foreign Office Questions today, Mr. Johnson fielded a series of demands to cancel Mr. Trump's visit, with MPs labeling him a serial child abuser. Mr. Johnson said the Prime Minister had condemned it and she speaks for the government and indeed for me. He added, no sooner had she spoken than the President of the United States repealed the policy, thus demonstrating, I venture to suggest, the considerable and growing influence of the UK. The comment might provoke tensions with the U.S. President, who has reportedly been irritated at Mrs. May's schoolmistress tone. In the chamber, SNP MP Peter Grant described the facilities as concentration camps. He said, isn't it time for the government to seriously question whether the United States' present president is a fit and proper person to be our greatest ally? This is somebody who can only be described as a serial child abuser. Putting children into concentration camps is not acceptable. He has not yet taken them out of these camps, he's holding them hostage to force their parents to give up their claims to asylum. He's also tried to abolish due process. How can this person be fit for a state visit? But Mr. Johnson pointed out that the president had since repealed the policy, adding, he remains the head of state of our most important economic, military and security ally. Shadow Foreign Secretary Emily Thornberry said Mr. Trump's record was abhorrent. Even he knows, in the depth of his soul, that when we have a president like Donald Trump who bans Muslims and supports Nazis, who stokes conflict and fuels climate change, who abuses women and cages children, that is not a record to be admired, that is a record to be abhorred, Mrs. Thornberry said. I simply ask the Foreign Secretary, not just why he joked that a man like that should be in charge of our Brexit negotiations, but why he thinks seriously that a man like that should have the honor, in 2 weeks' time, of visiting Chequers, Blenheim Palace and Windsor Castle and shaking hands with Her Majesty the Queen. Mr. Johnson responded, we're not afraid to say it when our views differ, but the fundamental point on which I think she and I are in complete agreement is that it is right that the United Kingdom should welcome to this country the head of state of our most important and most trusted ally.